All right, everyone, welcome back to the EO San Diego podcast. This is your host, Jason Lee. This is my co-host, Mark Gallo. And today in the house, we got Les, the CEO of Jacob Tyler. Les, welcome in, man.
Thank you. Good to be here as usual. Or not. I've never been here. So.
First podcast?
Yeah, first podcast. Okay. So you're breaking me in. Let's see how I do.
Cool, man.
Buckle up. Here we go.
Yeah, here it is.
So what's the founding story of Jacob Tyler?
Yeah, how did you come across this name? How did you...
Excellent question. Wow, your brilliant questions already. I'll make a short story somewhat long. I got out of... I left an agency and started a company called Vivid Commerce. Why? Because when I left the agency, I had said, because I wanted to get new business, like, oh, just go to Gateway, go to Qualcomm, go to AOL. These are all businesses I've done. And they're like, no, you got to build a portfolio. I'm like, oh, pain in the ass, just pay me, So I bought vividcommerce.com. I was like thinking clear commerce, it's a good story, which that's what branding's about, right?
Yeah.
And I can get more into that. And I put up a portfolio and started to do work. And I started to realize I was just really enjoying, I could program and design websites. So this is in the late 90s. And that seemed to be a pretty good trick back then.
Yeah.
Maybe pretty valuable, So I ended up for about 3 years, I was looking for work. I turned down some jobs because I just enjoyed working at home and doing it for myself. And I was making decent money. And in 2003, when my son was born, his name is Jacob Tyler Collegian.
Makes sense.
So I rebranded to Jacob Tyler. And part of that decision was most of the work I did were for some pretty big companies in New York. And so I was traveling back and forth to New York a lot. But I never used to know how to pack for New York. I was staying in friends' apartments. So like the companies I was working with, they wanted me there, but they really didn't want to pay for exorbitant hotels. I'm like, look, just fly me out. I'll handle that. And, and I would stay with my friends in their apartments. And we had a great time. But since I never packed well enough, I would take the train in the morning and I would get off at Grand Central. I worked in the Grace Building in Bryant Park in New York. And I would, and Kenneth Cole was open at like 8 a.m. So I'd go in and get clothes. And like I would kind of wear the same pants, but I did it so often that they would have a shirt waiting for me. They'd have a tie. They'd have 3 different outfits for me to choose from. I'd go with my old clothes, change, and come out with the new clothes.
Yeah.
And it was like really cool experience, like because it was the same staff every day. So they would give me shit for just coming in hungover or whatever, and getting new clothes. And I always thought that like it was such a fun experience, and I always thought I looked good, like girls would like me because I was wearing Kenneth Cole at the time. And they never gouged me on price. Like it was very reasonable. It was like $40 tie, $50 shirt. And back then, I was making the money that wasn't a problem, for what I was doing. And so I thought, okay, Jacob Tyler will be of design as to what Kenneth Cole is to clothing, which was a great experience. You look good. And, it's a reasonable price, and so that's kind of how that brand foundation started.
It's the inspiration, right? I think we're all, it's funny. You kind of go down the whole path of how do you come up with a name? What's your inspiration for the company? So that's a great story.
It's always funny too.
Imagine. Yeah.
People would call up, be like, yeah, can I talk to Jacob? I'm like, yeah, he's watching SpongeBob right now, but I can help you, They never thought, they always just think Jacob Tyler's the owner of the company.
Yeah, well, he is.
When he was 10, he's like, so Dad, when I get the company, I'm like, whoa, you're not getting the company, Dad. Yeah. you get a chance at a job.
Yeah.
So I'll read your resume.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the foundation of that. And I'm a big believer in, branding is really a story, and that's how you really build yourself and create premiums and brands.
Well, let's talk about that. How did you find that branding was your calling?
Well, I mean, really, I'm a creative, I would say. I fancy myself as a good copywriter, campaign writer, and then I hire copywriters and campaign writers. I'm like, oh shit, they're better than me, and that's what I pay them for, I guess. But I really just got into, as I started working and doing creative for businesses, so I did a lot of creative work for Ritz-Carlton, Four Seasons, just really high-end premium brands, and they just taught me about brand values and core values and how they taught me versus me teaching them, right? And just at a young age doing that type of work. And it had an effect on me. And as part of things when I'm working on, core values and for brands for companies now, it's like, if your employees understand your values as a company, they'll help them make decisions to support what they're thinking of doing. Would my company do this? Well, look at the values. The answer is yes, then no, right?
Yeah.
And so I just started to really enjoy that part of it, and it affects if you're thinking through that brand story, and you're thinking through what is the positioning, the messaging, the inspiration, the tone. Like for example, when I talk about voice, like when you go to Jacob Tyler, it says our creative kicks ass and makes names, right? Instead of takes names, right? So it's a play on that, right?
Yeah.
And if I showed up in a 3-piece suit, you'd be like, okay, there's a disconnect with that, the way he's talking and that colloquial tone versus how he's showing up,
Right.
And so if you know me, I'm a brash kind of pain in the ass type of guy, right? And that's how I talk, and that's who I am. And so but I also have the values of integrity and and other pieces that equal it out.
Well, that helps make a well-rounded business at the end of the day. Yeah.
Well, look, I mean, I can look really good, but I can also business problems and challenges, So, but if you still, I think those things really help. And it really helped me to understand how to work with other companies, other brands, to help them. It's much easier to see the forest through the trees, and that, right? Like, I'm probably my own worst marketer, but for everyone else, I can make them money.
Publish something.
Yeah. So yeah. So that's how I got into it. I love creative, and I love designing, and I love thinking through that.
Okay.
That's cool. Why did you decide to wait? Sorry, did you live in New York for a while, or were you traveling?
I would say, I would say I didn't pay rent in an apartment. My friends paid my rent because I live with them, but I probably would live there 2 or 3 months at a time and then come back.
Got it.
Yeah.
How'd you end up in San Diego?
Oh, dude, you can't shovel sunshine, man. I grew up in Boston, and then Maryland, and then after I got my master's, I went out and lived with my buddy in Thousand Oaks, who's my fraternity brother. I freaking hated it there. It was hot, and I didn't really enjoy it. I didn't enjoy LA. And then another fraternity brother came out and said, let's drive down to San Diego. And this was in '93. And we ended up in Mission Beach. I was like, holy mackerel. Like, who knew this existed?
Yeah.
I went back. I lived in Arlington, Virginia, like right over the DC border, right near Georgetown, and just saved up, got a job, saved up, and moved my ass out here as soon as I could. I love it.
Yeah.
I've been here about, I don't even know, 27 years, something like that. So I consider myself a San Diego now. But yeah, it's just, you can't beat, and every time I think I want to leave, I go back and I'm like, oh, this is great. And then I land on the plane here. I'm like, back to heaven.
There is something about flying into San Diego.
There is.
Yeah.
It's unreal. So that's what brought me out here.
Wow.
No, when did you join EO, first off?
So 2011, so I had bought a condo downtown in Little Italy, and ended up renting it out to Adam Daly as a business. And he ended up putting 13 or 14 people in 900 square feet. I was getting complaints from all the HOA, and it was so Adam and I had a funny, that's a funny story in itself. He started putting people working at the pool. It was pretty classic. And we would talk about business and stuff, and Adam's like, Les, you should join EO. It's a really killer group. I'm like, whatever, I didn't really think about it. And he introduced me to John Carter, who, he put on his charm or whatever. And then,
John Carter.
Took me out to dinner and kind of got me in. And I want to say that was 2011.
Okay.
So it's been almost 15 years, I think, I've been in. And, once I was in, I kind of, it was a much smaller group. I think now we're in the 230s. Is that for members? Somewhere in there?
220, somewhere there.
Yeah, give or take. And it's about 80 people. And I just absolutely love the camaraderie. And frankly, I felt like the dumbest person in the room always. And I kind of like that.
Yeah.
I want to be that person, and I've definitely felt like an imposter for sure. I mean, it's like, oh man, how'd they let me in this group? They're going to find out I shouldn't be here, one of those things. But since then, I just met so many great people, and certainly my forum has helped me to stay in business because, there's so many times I've just been like, oh man, let's go work in a golf shop. Screw this. Like,
It does sound like a
9 to
waste of
5.
money.
I don't want to think.
Yeah, a little bit clock out. That'd be great.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, just clock it down. Holy mackerel, that's a thing.
Yeah.
So I really, it's made a huge impact on me. I was in a forum for 10 years with a bunch of great guys like Callan and and just traveled the world with them and just realized like, man, there's so much I can learn and so much patience that I need to attain in doing this. And just I'm not a money guy. I'm a lifestyle guy, and anyone who knows me definitely knows that. Like, you do not want me to respond. I'm on the board this year, and Mark Wilson was like, hey, what do you want to do? I was like, well, not finance. Anything pretty much but that. But so I'm ended up in comms, which is where I should be. It's the thing I don't really know. But so that's ultimately.
What's been your biggest lesson from EO, you think?
Oh man, I'd say the biggest lesson. That's a tough question because there's so many, but really I never understood the concept of scale, and making money essentially while you sleep. What I do, unfortunately, I have to be a large part of because unless I find the right team, and that goes back to, maybe, Ron or, EOS or putting the right people in the right seat of the bus. And I've been a terrible hirer in the past. I've trusted people. I tend to trust them. I tend to be very nurturing, not pull the Band-Aid off quick enough. You've never said, man, I shouldn't have fired that. I should have held on longer.
No one's ever said I should have fired that.
I should have waited.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I wait too long. And so I've really learned to pull off the Band-Aid quick now, take a lot more time, basically, measuring twice and cutting once. But scale has been for sure what I've learned the concept of, but haven't mastered of achieving. And that's what I'm trying to essentially do now is achieve that.
I think that's a struggle for most entrepreneurs, right? I mean, we know the rules.
Yeah.
We know what we're supposed to do, ultimately. It's coming together. And I think that's probably one of the things I do enjoy about my forum is they'll come in on check on that. Like, hey, we talked about this.
Oh, yeah.
How are you doing on that? Again, it's not an accountability group by any stretch, but these are my buddies and they're all business owners.
Yeah.
And they'll hey, you've been talking about this for a while. Why do you feel that this is a problem?
Hold yourself accountable, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah. And I've been to the point where I've just wanted to just walk away. And, you have your forum with like, calm the fuck down.
Yeah.
Stop being a baby.
Yeah.
But get your shit together and start, doing this. And the nice thing, too, is like these guys will actually take the time, like, all right, emergency meeting. They'll stop what they're doing.
Yeah.
And start whiteboarding on my behalf of what I should do, non-gestalt even.
Yeah.
Like, hey, man, here's 10 ideas that you need to do, and just kind of, pushing you in the right direction.
Process
kind
through
of
it.
waking you up a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's, and the irony is, like I said before, forest through trees, right? It's all stuff that's not outrageously, it's not a brand new thought, it's just stuff that you just can't think to do it. And when someone else kind of gives you that nudge, it just makes such a difference. And then also the support on top of it, like getting someone do like, oh, it just landed $100,000 account. Like, damn, yeah. And like, going to dinner to celebrate, like those types of little things kind of just make you feel just better about, what you're up to.
I know when I've gone through different times in my life and it's always like, it's hard to celebrate some of your victories.
Yeah.
With everybody.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to celebrate your failures with everybody. And so I think that's one of the big things that I like to take away is people aren't going to be jealous of your victories.
Yeah.
And they're there to comfort you in sorrow due to the fact that they've been through it themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just failing better. And, and I'd say the other thing too, I've been notoriously in my life self-deprecating. And
I live in that space.
And I've had a lot of people, and I listen to people brag, and I'm like, yeah, I'm there, dude. Like, but I don't say it, know? And I don't know, I've gotten mixed input about that. Like, no, brag about your wins, talk about it, make yourself known for what you can do, because people don't know if you don't tell them, you know? And it's funny because too, it's like, I always thought people would know who I am, or what Jacob Tyler is, and just because I do.
Yeah.
Right. But that makes no sense. Like, why in hell would you know what I do?
Yeah.
And so it's just, it's a whole thing's a learning experience constantly.
No, yeah. I don't think I got that close to you. I mean, it's crazy, right? I've been in EO since 2018. You've been there along the way.
Yeah.
I don't think up until we went on the trip to Oahu did have an opportunity just like you and I to sit down and kind of get soulful on stuff.
Well, yeah, and I think, and that's the other thing, and that's why it's really important to come to events, or especially like the family events, or be on the board of those things. Because even with Jason, like, it's like, we started doing some work together, but prior to that, I didn't know who he was. And when you're at an event,
that's a bigger problem.
Yeah. Wait. Well, the EO is huge now.
Yeah.
And
sure.
if you're not at events, you don't know who anyone is.
Yeah.
But even so, what I said to you, Mark, was like, and I said it to you in Hawaii. It's like, look, we've been to 20, 30 events together.
Yeah.
But that gives me 5 minutes to talk to you, because when you've got 100 other people that you're friends with, you're getting pulled away, I'm getting pulled away. Oh, I've got to tell Nick something. I got to tell Jason something, whatever. And you're seeing all these people. So you never get really that quality time, which is the other thing that I really believe in, is just reaching out beyond your forum and going, and I do this all the time. Like, hey, dude, let's go to lunch. Like, let's get an hour on the docket to just meet up. And I don't do it enough. Like, there's people I need to do it with that I don't.
I think it's good, right? You gotta be able to pull people together. EO concentrates so heavily on the three legs of the stool, right? It's business, it's personal, and it's family.
Yeah.
And I think that we all kind of understand each other on a business level. Maybe not exactly what the business does, but to get to know people on a personal level, on a family level, I think is really, and people take a vested interest in it.
Yeah.
Which I think is really a cool experience for sure.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Do you think the events have been just as impactful as your forum, or other way around?
There were times, yeah. That's a tough question, because I think, every event is different. I think that there's some change that needs to happen with some of the event planning over years. It's not one president or one learning person at all. But I definitely feel that forum is by far the most impactful, not the events. The events are like a plus, and especially when you get a nugget from some people that are, really impactful people.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it would be great to even have more events with some of the impactful people in EO, help them create a presentation that they can even use for their clients, but to really understand who they are and a little bit of their personal background. Like EO talks, but a little less vulnerable.
A little less vulnerable.
But because it'd be a great way to get to know people. And I think those would be really impactful hour of my life, versus I think some of the events that we've had, and I don't want to belabor this, but they've been people talking to the wrong audience. So if I've got someone telling me that I need to really hunker down and stick with it and stay the course, like, dude, I'm not a manager. I've been doing this for 20 something years. And I understand that if I don't push, it's not going to happen,
Yeah.
So it's just, so you just have to know, I think that the people that are speaking need to know their audience and prepare more for that.
Yeah.
Or be prepared more for that.
That's fair.
No, that's a good point.
Maybe you can help communicate that out next year.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be. Well, it's something I'll bring up. Like even Mark sure as hell doesn't need to learn that. But, But I'd say it's something that we're, like even with some of the presentations, some of these guys, they're doing it's just like a stand-up routine, right? They've practiced this.
Yeah.
They're doing the same thing. Watch it ahead of time and say, this ain't going to work, or here's what I would change for the audience.
Yeah.
And it's what I would do with a website messaging. It's what I would do with your brand messaging. If I was doing a TV commercial, anything.
Yeah.
So
I've got a good question for you.
Yeah.
Why do you think so many people in EO only do forum and don't get involved?
Ooh.
Because they don't believe there's going to be a benefit. And no matter how much push you give them, well, first of all, there's always an excuse. I'm too busy.
Yeah.
Right? You're not too busy. It's just priorities.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And then, unfortunately, they'll come to that one event, and it's the one that's a dud. And they're like, well, I told you. And so, dude, there's guys in my forum now that do not go to events, and I've been begging them to go to events. But they're looking more for the impact that I will give them than the agency agency than the,
Entire
the
chapter
as a whole,
chapter,
the organization thing.
Yeah.
That's what I'm like, as a whole. So I think everyone should be on the board at some point. I've done it. This is my 5th year doing it, not in a row, but out of 5 out of 15, I guess. It was really nice of Mark to have me on. It's another forum in itself.
Yeah.
And it forces you to spend time with a group of people that you will not normally hang out with. Like, Mark and I don't go out to dinner, although we should. Yeah. And maybe that will get us to the point where we go out to dinner where he pays. But, that's...
You're on my type.
That's it. So that's the deal on that.
Okay. Cool. It's a good answer. Good answer.
Cool.
Any last things you want to say about your experience in EO or anything like that?
Well, we're talking to a group of EO people, right? I'd say if we're talking to EO group, I'm a lifer. I think just a lot of people will be like, well, what is the ROI on joining? I'm paying $7,500 a year, whatever. And I'm telling you, it's really not quantifiable.
It's not. Yeah.
If you're looking for direct cash on cash,
no.
Hard.
Yeah.
Now I've definitely, while I've never solicited, but the relationships you create, people are like, oh, this guy knows what he's doing. Let me hire this guy. Wait a minute. I didn't know he did. You know what I mean? And I was just going to Fiverr or some shit, and then, the people need to sit back and go, look, the relationships I create is one thing, but there's also the stuff that you don't know. Like, I'm at an event, meet someone that comes, that I'm either able to help or they're able to help me. My condo downtown, I got in some trouble in business, was down about $500,000 I need to come up with real quick. Went to someone else, like, can you buy this property? Here's my offer. I got no room for negotiations and I need it quick. They're like, yeah, done. Right. And so they made money on it. I didn't, but that's fine. I got what I needed at the time and it was no issue. Right. And that's a ridiculous thing that I never would have thought, but it's just something that helped me at that time. Yeah. And I'm in debt for that to that person, indebted, I should say. That was a great thing. And that's happened many times, or even little silly things. So that's why I'm always on EO. And I'm like, if someone needs something, I want to try to create that recommendation, because if we can keep it all in the family, that's amazing.
Well, there's trust there, right? With trust and credibility. Yeah.
I was doing, just real quick, I was doing my house, whatever you call that. And I, the guys that were doing it just walked. They were untrustworthy people, right? So now I've got a house that's like demoed essentially and no one to do it, and reached out to EO, and Daniel Skolnick, guy in my forum, who I trust implicitly, was like, here's your painter, here's your guy. This guy is kind of flaky. You need to manage him this way, but he'll do killer work, and don't negotiate with him because his prices are great. Like, gives you the roadmap.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this guy saved my ass.
Yeah.
Right. And now I refer that guy to other people because he's a good guy. Right. And so there was no issue. Trust him implicitly. Whatever you say, I'm in.
Yeah. When you know somebody personally.
And that's really the ROI. Yeah. The ROI is the relationships and the camaraderie and starting to maybe know what you don't know a little bit.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Relationships are everything, right? So
100%. I'm trying to teach my kid that. It's all about relationships,
Yeah, it's all that matters.
That's good.
Cool.
Well, I appreciate you coming in, giving us some of your time, and just kind of telling your EO story. Cool. I think it's important. I think it's important for people that are listening to this to understand that, everybody's got imposter syndrome. No one thinks that they belong in the seat.
Sure.
And B, but that's it. It's so funny to kind of know that there's everybody else in this situation the same as you.
Yeah.
Misery loves company.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
I learn from someone here every day, and even the people that, everyone, no matter how much money you have, you've got a business issue or,
of course,
something going on that someone can help with. It doesn't matter. Money doesn't technically matter in that situation.
Absolutely.
It's true.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you coming in.
Yeah.
And all the best. All the best.
Thanks. Thanks for the invite.
Thanks, Les.
Many times.
Cool.
So,
there we go. Perfect.
Peace.